touch on. Kind of a current sort of a current thing of the moment. And I kind of wanted to kind of talk about the what's it. Here's the question: what does it feel like during wartime in Hawaii? Now, Dylan and Heidi, how many years have you been in? What year did you move out to Hawaii, Heidi?
I moved to Hawaii January 2014.
2014. Okay. So you're coming to your 8-year anniversary. Scott's been here for 20 years. I've been here for almost 40 years. No, Scott, is it 20 years, Scott, or longer than that?
Yeah, 22.
Okay, 22 years. 22 years. I think I'm pushing 40 years in Hawaii. Dylan, you've been born and raised here. So to a certain degree of other, we've been through sort of some conflicts and sort of war in Hawaii. Hawaii, I don't know if you folks are aware of this or not, but Hawaii used to get if not all, I think most if not all of its oil came actually from Russia. That's affected on us. There's also, I wanted to kind of talk about what the vibe feels like in Hawaii during kind of wartime. Dylan, maybe you can. This might be a chat between you and me, Dylan. I'm not too sure, but well, Scott, you've been through some I think some conflicts that have been here locally. Dylan, how would you characterize what's the and Dylan, you actually are serving right now in the armed forces on the reserve, if I'm not mistaken. Dylan, how would you characterize, what does it feel like? What's the vibe locally, sort of during wartime kind of a situation? Why don't you kind of start with that?
There's always a level of uncertainty. I mean, I think, there's kind of two groups of people: the ones that just are happy-go-lucky and don't let any of that stuff get to them, and they just go on with life. And then there's the other ones where, there's people talking about stocking up on meat, because that's like the latest thing, is that we're going to run out of meat coming to the island. And of course, toilet paper and other things like that. But definitely the cost of fuel has gone up pretty significantly and continues to go up. And that's going to affect most people's day-to-day lives the most when there's international conflict and things like that. So there's a big military community in Hawaii. Hawaii has the highest per capita rate of people that serve in the armed forces. So definitely in the community, there's a lot of people that have concern when things like this happen, and most people have some personal connection to somebody that's serving. But for me right now, I just don't feel like there has been a big change in the vibe per se. It's one of those things that's so far off. It doesn't, other than gas prices, doesn't really touch you personally. So not too much yet. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's gonna change necessarily. And I actually have a limited perspective, because I mean, the last big conflict in Iraq, I was there in Iraq. I wasn't here, so I missed it. I missed what the vibe was like here in Hawaii.
Well, I know that it changes. It depends. The change hasn't occurred yet, but like the visitor industry, like I remember, like the Gulf Wars, tourism was like boom. It was almost like COVID, right? The beaches were empty. Nobody flew over. Everyone kind of clamped down. That hasn't happened yet. So that's kind of interesting. Heidi, what
was interesting being in California though was the gas prices were significantly higher in California. I mean, they were regularly over $6 everywhere we went. So you think it's bad here? I mean, it could always be worse.
I just paid $5.50. I just paid $5.50 for premium just the other day.
Yeah, everything near downtown San Diego was pretty much over $6, and then when you got further out, like towards the Indian reservations and stuff, dipped down $5.80 and stuff. But yeah, it was pretty much over $6 most places.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly. Heidi, what's the vibe sort of like right now in Maui about this? There's fuel prices that are going up. Is there anything else that people are kind of mentioning or talking about, or what's kind of going on over there?
Well, I think over the past few years, we've gotten used to living with just a lot of uncertainty in general. So it just feels more like that. I mean, gas prices, it's around $5.50 a gallon to fill up on most parts of Maui. In Hana, which is the remote east side of the island, gas prices I hear are over $7. But I do hear anecdotally the price of rental cars has gone way down since before. So where I am, I mean, it's hard to say, because I'm around a lot of people that are on vacation and visiting, and they seem to be ignoring it for the most part.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
got
it
lucky. So
seems very far away. It hasn't directly impacted us yet, and I mean, hopefully it stays that way.
hopefully it stays that way. Yeah, there. Well, I'm thinking like one thing's going to go wrong, and then we're all gonna like overload Costco and pick up all the toilet paper. That's like a typical Hawaii thing, right? First thing you go for is toilet paper. There's a historical reason. Scott, what's your observation? How does this? I mean, what do you think is going? I mean, how do you think things feel? What are you getting anecdotally? How's it compared to previous conflicts that you've lived through here? What's your sense?
Yeah, I think the effect is on the economic side, obviously, inflationary components, gas prices. Tell Carl, you got to go buy more Tesla stock because everyone's going to be switching to electric cars and PV here shortly. But and I'll make the announcement.
Sorry, but look, he's there. He's got his PV system building. There he goes.
Yep, he's a smart man. He's on it. Yeah, and I always say, I mean, this conflict's halfway around the world. So was Iraq. There were other components to Iraq. So I kind of feel like it's the same as when all the turmoil that was going on in the mainland in Detroit and LA and other places. It's like, meh, we're out in the middle of the Pacific. We're living our island vibe a little bit. It hasn't affected us some socially other than economic, and even the economic impact is just in the beginning. We do, however, have Pacific Command here. If we have a Pacific conflict, that's going to have much more direct impact to us because there are 7 military bases here and Pacific Command and Pearl Harbor is here. So that's when I would say we would be more impacted and people would be more on edge at that point.
I'll tell you one thing that comes to my mind is that this is the safest place on earth. That's what comes to my mind. Like, this is the safest place on earth. We're the most remote. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. We have the world's greatest navy that is based here. So there's defenses up the wazoo. And if anyone's if anyone's coming over other than missiles, which we had that missile scare several years ago, but other than missiles, we know that they're coming. So there's a little bit of that as well. We got a couple of comments, and we're gonna start to close it up over here. Tom, amazes to me how environmentally sensitive Hawaii is. That most of the utilities are still fossil fuel power plants. By the way, note that Kauai is 60% clean energy. Yeah, Tom, good points. I mean, look, Hawaii, because of its location, the only way we can power those power plants is through fossil fuels. We don't have water. We don't have rivers. We don't have a Niagara Falls. We don't have that kind of stuff. And solar is extraordinarily expensive, not just in the cost of the equipment itself, but you think about land use, how much land it takes. It's extraordinarily expensive. Kauai's lucky they did make the move, although I think Kauai's rates are still higher. So yes, Kauai has made the move to a lot of renewables, but there's another problem with renewables. Renewables don't work really well when it's cloudy and rainy. Anyone who's got solar plus battery knows